Hey, Darius Rucker here. I've known these Shady Ladies for a long time, and I love to hear their stories, but these tales and opinions are not for the faint of heart. And this podcast is not suitable for children, but then again, neither is the music business. So light one up and lighten up with the Shady Ladies of Music City.
I'm Evelyn.
And I'm Susan. Some people refer to us as
the Shady Ladies of Music City.
Well, we're here in Nashville, Tennessee with our friend and probably one of the best musicians maybe in the world, Mickey Raphael, who plays harmonica with Willie and with Chris Stapleton and has played with Willie since he was popped out of the egg.
Yeah, since I was 20, 21, 1973.
How did you meet Willie?
How I met Willie? I met him, I got a call from Darryl Royal, who was the coach. Darryl Royal.
Okay.
He was the coach of the University of Texas football team. And he was a big music fan and a patron of the arts and a close friend of Willie's. And he got a message to me, actually through Merlin Littlefield. Called. I was living in Dallas, and he said, the coach is in town for a ball game, and he's having a little picking party after the game, and he'd like to meet you. Come over and bring your harmonicas. He said he's going to have a bunch of his friends. And
they knew that you played, obviously.
I think the coach had seen me play in Austin. I was playing with B.W. Stevenson at the time. That was 1972. And so he'd seen me playing clubs around Austin, and he said, come over after the game. And I think Texas was playing Arkansas. And I wasn't a big sports fan, but I knew, obviously, who the coach was. And so I went over there, and he had about 30 people in the room, and Willie was there, and Charlie Pride was there. And I really wasn't that familiar with Willie because I didn't listen to country music. But I had, since we were on RCA, I had access to their record vault. And I picked a record up one time that was Willie and Family. That was the reason I got it was because the cover was so unique. It was Willie and all of his family standing around a campfire at his farm on Ridgetop. And I thought, this is the weirdest looking picture. Who is this guy? Yeah. So, I kind of knew who Willie was barely at that time. And then Willie, was sitting on the floor of this hotel room singing Funny How Time Slips Away and Crazy. And I just kind of put it together. And I sat and, just jammed with him on my harmonica.
I bet he sounded phenomenal.
Yeah, he was great. Just he and the guitar. And he was 39 at the time.
Wow.
So, that's kind of how I first met him. And he says, hey, if you ever hear we're playing anywhere, come sit in.
And you did forever.
I did, yeah. I tell people I've never really been hired. I just never was asked to leave.
That's right.
How did you just come upon the harmonica as your instrument? And
I was a terrible guitar player. I love music, and I had a guitar and played a little bit. Probably just didn't put the work in. But I saw a guy named Donnie Brooks play the harmonica when I was in Dallas. I was 15, 16 years old, and he really piqued my interest. And I saw that, saw him play, and I said, that's what I want to do. And I had a harmonica a friend of my dad's had given me. And so I just kind of carried around with me everywhere I went. And Donnie went on to play with Waylon, which kind of opened up the door for me with Willie.
You know what I watched the other night was the Greatest Night in Pop, the making of We Are the World.
Oh, really? Oh, yeah.
As a documentary. And it was really good. And I had no idea that, they had 10 days to write that song as they were booking people.
I was there. They were still writing it as everybody,
show,
as they're getting everybody together in the studio.
Yeah. Who, Lionel and Michael were still writing it?
Well, Lionel had originally gone to Stevie Wonder, who never called him back. So then he went to Michael Jackson. And then when they were done with the song and they were going to lay down, a basic track so the musicians could hear it, Stevie Wonder shows up and he's ready to write the song. And they had to tell him it's already a done deal.
So he missed out on
the writing.
And Waylon, I didn't see this film.
Waylon walked out.
Well, do you know why?
Why?
Because they were going to sing in Swahili.
So Stevie wanted him to sing his part in Swahili.
Wanted Waylon to sing his part in Swahili?
He wanted everybody to sing in Swahili, so that since it was for Africa. And Waylon says, well, I don't sing in African or something. And he walks out. And Lionel Richie says in a voiceover, I didn't bring anybody's attention to it because if they saw one person walk out, they would all start walking out.
Well, they had everybody set up like a choir, basically, and then they'd written out who sings what lines. So
There was
Who
a guy
wrote that out?
I don't know who paid
There was
Quincy
an arranger,
maybe, or
Quincy Jones, did the producing, but he brought in a vocal arranger who, before they ever wrote the song, listened to every artist that there was so that he could match up their ranges,
Well, that's
regardless of their
interesting.
styles, because he wanted everybody to sing in their own style. But he had to have them, within a range so that it sounded good. And he did all that, and he matched up all the people so that when they came in, like Dionne Warwick said, I'm supposed to sing with Willie Nelson.
That's interesting that he had somebody figure that
But
out.
I thought that was an amazing job
Yeah,
for
I
that
never thought of
vocal
that.
arranger, to have to pull that all
I
together.
wondered how they arranged it so that which person took which line, because it wasn't from how they were standing in the.
It was. He put them all in that circle so that they, fell in right. I mean, it may not have been edited that way, but
and not
that's-
everybody got a line,
Yeah.
right? So it was
Who didn't have a line?
I don't know, but there were more people
there were
than
more
there
people there than there were lines. And poor Bob Dylan looks so uncomfortable.
Well, I'm sure he's uncomfortable in that kind of social situation,
Yeah.
He's always uncomfortable.
but at least he showed up.
Yeah.
I think that's great.
That was a
that
huge
he-
thing. Remember when we did the Willie 60th birthday party in Austin?
Remember, and Kevin Costner was one of the hosts.
No, I don't remember that. And Bob Dylan was there. I don't remember any of
Yeah.
that.
No, you
You don't remember? Of course,
because
you
he's
do.
had so many amazing performances in your life. I mean, to you, what was the most amazing performance?
I think playing Georgia at Ray Charles's funeral
Oh,
with an
wow.
open casket was
Oh,
pretty wild.
no.
And in the audience, I mean, this is surreal, was Quincy, Wynton Marsalis, Little Richard, Stevie Wonder, who was on the front row, and I'm thinking, I'm so glad he can't see me. Yeah. But
Were you shaking?
It was a little challenging. Yeah, it was myself and Jim Cox, who played organ, and Willie on guitar and sang Georgia.
That was it?
Yeah. Well, we were on the, we were in a
funeral.
church on the, standing around the
The coffin.
Yeah, the open coffin.
Oh, wow. I didn't even realize you all had done that. That's pretty amazing.
Yeah, that was.
I'm not a big fan of open coffins.
Oh, I thought you were going to say Ray Charles.
No.
Yeah.
Well, I worked with him. When I first got into the business, I was working on the Benson and Hedges Blues Tour, and I had to media train all these people like Bobby Blue Bland, Pine Top Perkins,
Oh, that's
and
great.
all these blues people, and teach them how to say, I'd like to thank Benson and Hedges for giving me this opportunity. And Ray Charles was one of the people. Now, people didn't like him. He wasn't nice to the Rayettes.
Really.
Uh-huh.
He's not nice to drummers, so I hear. They're in the hot seat.
Yeah, he was not nice. And so
I remember when we did the Willie 60th birthday party, going on the bus, and he was playing chess with Willie. And Willie, of course, the minute he sees you, rolls a joint so that you can all partake. And when it went to Ray, he sucked down that whole joint in like one puff. It was amazing.
Yeah, it was amazing. He was an amazing guy. I couldn't believe he was playing chess.
Oh yeah, he invited Willie. He and Willie played chess a lot when
Yeah.
they were around. But he invited Willie to his room to play a game or several games. And Willie walks in and the lights are off. And Willie didn't feel comfortable asking him to turn the lights on. Of course, Ray's got a Braille chessboard so he can feel around and know where all
Right.
the pieces are. Willie could barely see the board. But even so, Ray beat, he
Did he turn on the light?
No. But Ray won his his share of games with Will.
I bet that they were just
And Willie's
loaded.
a great player too.
Is he a good player?
Yeah.
How many times have you played for the White House?
I think for President Carter, President Clinton, President Bush,
Which one?
2. And then Obama.
Isn't it amazing that people in the music business, especially in country music, I don't know if it's true for, R&B, et cetera, but I mean, we have gone to the White House more than most people. And you look, and you don't think of it as a big deal when they want, your passport and your social security number and all of that. But it's a huge deal to go to the White House.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, maybe we'll get a chance to go.
Again.
Yes, to see President Trump in the future.
No.
You think Willie would
That's
play?
not an endorsement, by the way.
You think Willie would play? Yeah, make that clear.
Yeah,
You think Willie would play for Trump?
No.
No.
No, I don't think
I
so
don't
either.
think so either.
No.
I was thinking about this the other night because when I was on Facebook, I was looking at somebody was talking about their bucket list stuff. And I thought, I don't really have a bucket list. And then I realized because I had a career that, offered me up so many of those things. I mean, there aren't that many things that I can think of that I really want to do that I haven't done.
I have things I haven't done. I wanted to go see the pyramids. And
I saw them.
I couldn't go because I was in Israel living there. And
And you
once your
couldn't go to Egypt
passport's stamped from Israel, they won't let you into Egypt.
Can you go now, though?
Who knows?
Yeah. I mean, not now, but,
I mean, I could go. It's really dirty over there. There's just a lot of garbage and shit around the pyramids. People don't take care. They didn't take care of them. There's all these looters that come and stuff.
Well, that's on my bucket list.
Yes, that's been going on for 5,000 years.
It has been.
Yes.
So I remember when we went to the Willie 60th birthday party in was it in Austin? The edict was that we couldn't look Bob Dylan in the eyes like we wanted to. And I forget whether it was Mark or who, no doubt, who came over and said, whatever you do, don't look Bob Dylan in the eyes. And I never forgot that. I always thought that was so bizarre.
Yeah, I don't know. I toured with him for, several years, and I never personally heard that. I heard stories, that they tell you not to look at him. I mean, he's the kind of guy that he'll walk around the venues, but he just wants to be left alone. So if he wants to talk to you, he'll come up to you. I mean, he'll seek you out. And I think kind of the rule of thumb is just don't bother him. Give him his space, and if he wants to talk to you, he will. But don't.
Well, I had no
don't
interest
approach
in
him.
talking to him, even though I would have loved to say to him, "My God, you were the seminal artist of my life. I listened to you every day in college."
We flew one time. We were doing a show here in Nashville with him, and Willie, and that's when I was living in L.A. And Bob was singing with us too. So it was myself, Don Was, Jim Keltner, drummer.
He was a great guy.
Great guy, great drummer. And Jeff Kramer, Bob's manager.
I remember.
And Bob.
Kramer.
So we're on the plane. We take the red eye. And I remember getting on the plane, walking behind Bob. And a ticket attendant looks at Bob's, ticket and says, have a nice trip, Mr. Smith or Mr. Jones, whatever.
Right.
Back then you could fly under a pseudonym. And we get to, first off, we take off. We're flying. He's sitting right across the aisle from me. And I'm kind of ignoring him because you got to just give him
Don't want to look him in the eye.
his space, but he's chatting me up, but you kind of speak when spoken to, so as soon as he fell asleep, I couldn't help but stare at him, and it's like, oh my God, it's Bob Dylan sitting next to me, but then we land and we're walking to baggage and we're walking through the Nashville airport. And again, it's myself, we've been flying all night and these guys just came from the Grammys. So they're all decked out in their black, jackets and motorcycle boots and stuff. But so we get to baggage and there's a limo driver and it's just, it's me, Bob Keltner and Jeff. And the limo driver has a sign that says Raphael. And Bob looks at me over his glasses. It's like he couldn't have a sign that says Bob Dylan.
Who ordered you a limo?
Well, I mean, we're not going to, take an Uber, so
Oh, that's
the
funny.
point was that was the driver that was picking all of us up. The contact name was not Bob Dylan. Yes, I was the least famous of that crew to whose name they
You
could
could have
put in
put
the public.
Keltner on there. Nobody would have known at the airport either.
Maybe they would have, though.
In Nashville?
That was a great show, though, that 60th birthday party for Willie.
Mm-hmm.
Look how many birthday parties and, things we've done for Willie. The same with George.
Yeah.
I mean, they just kept living. Everyone, this will be the last time they'll ever play the Opry. And then 2 years later, back again, George.
Yeah.
It was like the goodbye tours for the Judds. They kept having
the final tour?
The final tour, and they kept having goodbye tours. And then a year later, they'd go back on the road.
Yeah, I'm sure Marky's planning the 100th
really?
birthday right now,
When you started out with the band, the family, what was Paul English? Was he scary to you? I mean, he had such a reputation, you got to realize how many years were going back.
Yeah, I mean, he took care of business. I mean, I'd never been around guns before, and there were a lot of them around,
Who else had them? Willie didn't, did he?
Oh, I bet they all had a lot of guns.
He may or may not have had, but Paul did, and Paul, because being a businessman that he was,
right.
There was always one in his boot and one in his briefcase, and somebody had gotten allegedly shot at his house, and then we had to fly the next day for the CMA, Paul's in Dallas. So we had to fly in for the CMAs, and I can't remember if he was packing for the CMAs, but I know we've gone to many gigs where he had a rifle behind him on the stage,
Paul did?
Uh-huh.
A rifle on the stage?
Yeah, an M1.
Paul was the enforcer.
Yeah, well, there were a lot of times
that he had to be, I'm sure.
He had to. Oh, yeah, it was. Yeah, and then because this person was shot at Paul's house, Paul, the moral thing to do in that world was to kind of take revenge since somebody was shot in front of his kids. So you had to settle Paul's kids.
Really?
So you settle the score, and as a preemptive, this guy might have been out, after any of us. So when I have just started working with Willie and moved to Austin, I was sleeping on Bobby, Willie's sister's couch, and all this stuff happens. I'd never been around guns, and since I was on the couch in the front window, we kind of took turns sitting watching all night in case this guy, I can't even remember what his name was, Vernon or something like that, would drive by and shoot up the house. So,
oh, wow.
Not Vernon, was the road manager for Christofferson. Remember him?
No. Yeah, so we took turns keeping watch, and I'm trying to sleep on this couch at Bobby's house. I'm the new house guest, but I had to, be a sentry.
But that could be scary, in real life.
It was real scary,
because, I mean, Paul was always so nice to me, and he was, very charming. And
he was so nice to me,
but
too.
when you read his history, it was so amazing. I mean, was he partners with, was it Jack Ruby and the whole?
No. I think he knew Jack because he ran with that crowd. Back then they were called characters, police characters. So in the character world, Paul was a judge. So if two characters, and these are Paul's words, if two characters had a beef, a problem, they would bring it to Paul, and Paul would settle it. Yeah. Because
so who were the other guys that we knew that were with remember that night at your house that Ted and I were out there?
Yeah. I don't think.
I can't remember which guy was there, but it was one of the guys that I knew from years on the road with Willie.
LG?
Who? LG. It was LG.
At my house? Oh, yeah, maybe so.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, the Hells Angels.
That's right.
Yeah. So there's an interesting story about how we met LG. Willie and I are on the bus in Santa Clara, California. We're playing a benefit for Jane Fonda, and we hear this roar of engines outside the bus. I look out, and it's about 10 motorcycles. It's a bunch of Hells Angels, and then there's a knock on the door. I answer the door, and guy says, we want to talk to Willie. So Willie comes to the door, and he's talking to him. And this guy's name was Deacon, and he was president of the Oakland chapter the Hells Angels. So we're talking to him. I can't remember if Willie, had any had a smoke with him or not. But they visit for a little while, and then Willie goes, "Well, guys, I gotta get ready and go to the show." And they say, "Well, come on, we'll take you." So Willie and I get on the back of their bikes, and they drive us about 20 miles to the venue. So I was riding with Deacon, who's a very big guy. So big that I could have lit a cigarette if I was smoking, and on the bike, the wind never would have got me. Willie was riding with a guy named Foo. So we pull up to the backstage area, and the security guy says, "You can't come in here." And the first bike pulls up and says, "Well, this is Willie Nelson. He's playing here right now." And the cop goes, "Yeah, sure it is." And Willie pulls out his American Express card. So don't leave home without it. And then we went back to the clubhouse, which was about a 30-mile ride that night. And again, I felt, I didn't spend a lot of time on motorcycles, but if I was going to do it, that's the way to do it. And I felt totally safe because I figured these guys knew what they were doing. And Deacon was so big, I was packed in so tight, I can't remember if there was a sissy bar on the bike, but I was his bitch for the evening. So
I remember when I first met Willie when I was hired to do the PR, and the bus was parked at the Vanderbilt Plaza Hotel. And I go over there, and of course I have nobody with me. Mark's not around. Nobody to do the intros or who am I and who's on the bus. And I timidly knock on the door, and LG lets me in, and there are all these huge burly guys, between the whole crew
Gates
there,
and
and
LG.
Gates and LG and David,
David
who
was
looked
not
like a
burly
total
guy.
lunatic. And there was a guy named Jeff Pringle who was working for Tony Conway and Buddy Lee at the time. And I thought he was the money man controlling everything because he had on a jacket and a tie. And so I just gravitated to him thinking he was my, ace in the hole in this
He was
group.
like the junior person.
He
at
was
Tony's.
like, just
He might
an
have been
intern.
Oh,
He was
yeah.
an intern at Buddy Lee's. But he went on to great, success and fame and claim.
as
and
a
everything.
poker player.
Yeah, he's a professional gambler.
Well, two of the guys, Deacon, who I rode with, and another guy named Boomer ended up working for Waylon. So they were on tour.
I remember Boomer.
Doing security for Waylon.
But it was a very kind group, as scary as it could be when you walked into the whole thing. It was like, oh my God, what am I doing here?
Yeah, and that's the idea.
And then they were all just so wonderful.
Well, they had to. They had to be. Actually, they were good guys.
Yeah.
To us. So they had to be. They were always on their best behavior because it reflected on Willie.
Yeah.
And they love Willie.
Yeah.
And they actually promoted several shows we did at the Cow Palace, and
It was a lot
San
different than the
Francisco.
Altamont shows. Was the Rolling Stones?
they learned how to do it by then.
All right.
Remember when we did Farm Aid in New Orleans and Willie made some appearance away from Farm Aid? I forget what it was, but it was like a Hells Angels gathering or something. And we went there,
yeah.
and there were just hundreds of motorcycles that led us into the space. And then, the bus could only go so far, and we all had to sort of move fast through the crowd. And it was very exciting.
I remember that. Where was that?
In New Orleans.
Was
The
it?
guy with the bezels.
I was the bezel. Remember who was the
Sheriff Lee.
Oh yes, God.
And he had all these deputies with him, and they all had diamond bezels on their
watches.
I was just mesmerized.
Yeah.
How are these guys that are deputies? And he explained that to Evelyn that he, when we used to go to eat, he would take about 60 people.
Yeah. How do politicians in Louisiana have that kind of money?
Well,
I wonder.
because he never had to pay.
He never had got a bill. We all went to dinner. He took us all out to dinner. Maybe you were there. And then when he said, you charge me what you think is fair for this. And so, of course, they gave him a bill for like $3.
Mm-hmm.
And meanwhile, it had been 50 people or something, 30 or 50
Yeah, and he
people.
said that that was how he lived, Sheriff Lee.
Well, it's kind of a barter system. I think
Yeah.
it's like when I first moved here, somebody told me, he says, we've got the, what the brother-in-law network is? I said, no, sir. He goes, you help my brother-in-law, I help your brother-in-law.
Well,
I
that
don't know if
really
that goes
was
for
the
the-
Nashville way when I got here,
Yeah.
too. It was like, there's one pie and we all take a sliver of it. But if we have, 50 pies, it'll be really good because it'll all mount up. Everybody just wanted a taste. Nowadays, everybody wants it all.
Once the pie.
There is no
yeah.
taste.
So they share in back in the day.
Yeah, I
So there's
think it
honor
was.
among thieves.
Yeah.
Is that? Yeah.
I think so. I
There
think
used
there
to
was.
There used to be. Yeah, that's what
Yeah.
Paul would always say.
I don't think
there's,
that there is anymore.
No,
I think
not at
people
all.
are,
even the characters I'd met
Informants.
with Paul and the cops that I knew, it was like a cat and mouse game. They respected each other.
Right.
And when a bad guy got caught, he did his time and actually respected the
game,
guy.
yeah.
It was the game, and the cops respected the bad guys. Now
there's
it's
no honor among thieves
no.
anymore. That phase is over.
So, other than
It's
the
a-
Ray Charles funeral, what was another major event in your life that you won't forget?
I think Willie playing with Wynton Marsalis
Really?
was great. Yeah, because we played with his group, and it really put us. We were totally out of our comfort zone.
Where did you play with them?
In New York at Jazz at Lincoln Center, we did two different shows. One was with Nora Jones and Willie singing, and that was a tribute to Ray Charles. So it was all Ray Charles songs, and the other was just like a blues, blues standards that we did. And a beautiful, I forget the name of the room.
He's
but it's-
unbelievable. I have several of his records, And he did, one called Winter, one called Fall.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's brilliant.
He's brilliant. He's
and we got to rehearse several days, so everything pretty much is written out, or is, there's some structure to it. And his band was so fun to play with. And they're all professors on their own, PhDs in music, jazz, and...
So, a lot of this season of our podcast is under the guise of then and now, how things were back then when Susan and I were active and how things are now.
Mm-hmm.
And you've sort of done both because you also play a lot with Chris Stapleton. What's it like
now
compared to how it was when you started out with Willie, or, the 50 years you've been with Willie versus somebody like Chris Stapleton, who is relatively new on the scene compared to your career?
But I would have to
Willie's.
say Chris Stapleton is absolutely the best news for male country artists that's come along in the last 20 years.
Oh,
Yeah,
I
he's
agree.
great. I'm very fortunate
he's
to be with
incredible.
him.
You're
Yeah.
so lucky to have played with, two
and
really
the whole
like
organization is amazing. And Morgan, who is, kind of...
His wife.
Her wife, incredible singer, and very subtly runs the show. So it's just fun. I mean, everybody gets along. I mean, it's just a great, if you could hire the creme de la creme, the best players, the best crew
There's no
guys.
Hells Angels on that tour.
Not yet,
Do they tour like you did in the old days?
No, they just work weekends. It's fabulous.
weekends,
Just
huh?
weekends, no days off. And I think they're working 50 days a year.
Did
Perfect.
the kids go?
Sometimes, when they're out of school, they go, and then they have a school set up for them in the venues, and so it's
So
great.
business is very different nowadays than in the early days, I would imagine.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, now it's a real business. I mean, everybody's there's half the crew are women, and there's no, it's run like it's a big corporation.
Yeah. They are nowadays too, because everybody's so willing to sue so quickly.
Mhm. Well, but everybody knows how to behave too. So
Yeah.
it's
That you know of.
that I know.
What
of.
about
That's right.
session work? I know you do a lot of session work. I mean, a lot of guys just stay in town and make the money. Some guys go out on the road.
Yeah, a couple.
It's
I mean,
a
like,
different lifestyle. I mean, you obviously prefer being on the road, I would assume.
Well, I don't get enough session work to stay home, but I do like, playing live. But I mean, they don't use harmonica on everything, but I get some good calls. I get some good, fun, projects.
You've played with a lot of people here because, since I've known you, which is a mere 25 years, I mean, you've played with Kenny Chesney, and I don't remember who else you've played with during sessions here.
Yeah. Here or just, I mean, because you can do them at home, but, Motley Crue, I played,
Right.
did their record, some of the, did Smoking in the Boys' Room with then. There's a track, there was just a European release for U2 that just came out in Europe. And, so I've been able to do a lot of different kind of eclectic, types of music.
Like
So,
what else?
Elton John, Motley Crue, U2.
I didn't know you
what
played
else?
with Elton John.
Yeah, on record, not live. Well, we did on the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame the other day. We did a song with him, but while they were setting everything up, we just jammed for about 20 minutes, and he just started playing, and just kind of encouraging the band. The myself, Don Was, and Audley Freed was there with us, and just played with him. So it was off camera.
Yeah.
So,
Well, those are probably better moments for,
Oh yeah, that's the fun stuff.
Yeah,
When he just starts playing.
yeah, that's what I said.
Wow. See, well, remember when George wouldn't sing The Highwayman?
Oh,
Oh,
God.
you wouldn't say damn.
It was a damn builder. Yes.
Christopherson was there saying, best goddamn singer in the world, and you won't sing them with us.
That was so crazy.
priceless. Yeah.
That just goes to show you how crazy George was. I'm trying to think, was Waylon there? Was Waylon?
No, Waylon wasn't involved in that. Was Merle?
No,
there? I can't-
no, it was
It wasn't
it was
Johnny
Hank
Cash.
Jr. and George as the fill-ins with Willie and Chris.
Oh, okay.
Maybe Waylon had died because that's why they were doing the Highwayman thing.
Yeah.
And we kept saying to him, George, you're not saying damn. You're just talking about a dam.
Like water blockage.
Yes.
Water blockage. She didn't get it. And he never sang it.
You've also had the opportunity to sort of put together some of the old music and videotapes. Didn't you do the whole concert in Central Park or something that you put it back together?
The Highwayman show in, God, where was that? It was one
Was
of
it
the Highwayman
Central
shows. No, it wasn't the Central Park one, but it was another one that was filmed, but they transferred it to HD, and then with Tony.
I saw that.
Yeah, we remixed that. So it
Well,
just
that has
brought
to
it
be
up to
fun,
date.
all of that stuff for you to go through the vaults and
Yeah, go through the hard drives and just, pull the fader up and there's Johnny's voice by itself, and just have access to all that,
How did you like the whole Highwayman, configuration? That must have been really...
Oh, that was amazing. It was so
I
fun.
loved getting to work on the second album. I mean, I remember when we were in LA doing the photo sessions, and I guess they were recording because it seemed to me that we were in the studio. I don't remember, but that was the time that I had lunch with Waylon and Johnny Cash by myself. It was so intimidating, to put it mildly.
I had dinner with him one night. He said, June wants to have you over for dinner. We were in Sydney, Australia, and come up to the room after the show, and he had a chef with him, and they, just had dinner in the room. And it was, even though Johnny was very disarming, I mean, he did his best to make you feel comfortable, but still, he was bigger than life.
And was Johnny Cash.
Yeah, and that was one guy that I was intimidated.
Yeah.
Man
even
Black.
even though this
Well,
is
at
the
that
sweetest
lunch,
guy.
he said to me, my friends call me John. And I just, I couldn't think of him as anything other than Johnny Cash,
He said, I got a note from him one time, a handwritten letter, and it said, next time you're in town, June and I would like to have you over to the house for breakfast. And I've had breakfast there, and that's a heart attack waiting to happen.
Oh, yeah.
Well, a few biscuits and gravy.
And bacon, and it was amazing. And yes, it would be my last meal, and I would gladly go.
Yeah, it was very cool to be around them. And Waylon could be so imposing, too.
Mm-hmm.
I remember when they hired me for the Highwayman project, Waylon was against it because he felt my loyalty would only be to Willie. And, we had some back and forth on it. And then I had to face him during a Highwayman. I don't know if it was a rehearsal or for some reason we were at the Opry House. And he and I went into one of the small dressing rooms. And I'm sitting in the chair, and he's just towering over me with that long black leather coat on. And he said, I don't mean to be, mean. But we resolved it, and we became good friends.
He was the best. Well, I mean, the four of them, I couldn't pick a favorite, but it was just, they were all just great.
Yeah, what a combination.
I know. And Christofferson, he just felt, he was just the songs he had written and his humbleness and, quietness and sweetness.
I mean, we did sound checks every day, and I look forward to them. It's like playing the show twice.
Yeah. So overall, are you happy with your career choice and the way your life is rolled out?
Yeah, I think I'm going to do this for a living.
Yeah. But
I don't know how much future is in it. Yeah, I've been very, very fortunate. I mean, I play the harmonica.
I know. What an incredible thing.
I know. You've had a great life.
Yeah, I've had a great life.
That's why we wanted to interview you for the podcast, because it just goes to show that you can have a dream and get it to work for you.
Playing a toy, yes.
Right, because it worked for you. I mean,
Well, the extraordinary experiences you've had and the things that you've seen and the places you've gone. And it's, it's like that bucket list stuff. For you, the bucket list might be settling down, having a lawnmower.
Yeah, I mean, I've been very fortunate, and just I think I just take it in as it comes. I mean, some people have goals. Every new year you set goals. Mine's just to stay above ground and to just accept things. Yeah, and not have too many rules about things that I can't accept.
That's smart.
So.
Because you seem to be happy in all the years that I've known you, 25 or 30 years at this point. And
we've known you quite a while. And you've been happy no matter what, whether you were on the road, off the road, married, divorced, whatever. We'd like to thank Mickey Raphael for taking time out of his busy schedule to talk to the Shady Ladies of Music City. And it's been very interesting because we've known you for so long and we don't always get to talk about your history and, how you met Willie, etc. But you certainly had a remarkable career. And thank you for sharing it with us and our audience, wherever they are and whoever they are. We don't know.
My mom. No, thank you for having me. This has been a pleasure. I've known you guys for
Too long.
since Korea, and
Right.
But
See, it's just a conversation. It's not a huge Inquisition podcast.
no, and I've kept to the script pretty closely.
That's right. You're
That you
following.
wrote for me last
That's
night.
right.
Yeah.
Well, thanks, Mickey.
No, this has been fun. Thank you.
We'll see you later.
Thanks for listening. Be sure to subscribe and we'll be sure to catch you off guard. So light one up and lighten up. Share and tell your friends, then rate, review, and subscribe. Don't be quiet about this. We need you to tell everyone.
And we mean everyone. We are putting our faith in your hands.
We are.
For more information on the podcast, please visit www.shadyladiesofmusiccity.com.
Shady Ladies of Music City is recorded and produced in Nashville, Tennessee, and presented by the Morris Hyam Management.
Our executive producer is Clint Hyam.
Our producer is Kyle Quigley.
Our engineer and editor is Robert Schaefers. Robert has also written and performed our theme music.